Welcome to episode 6, Twinkling Lights and Latkes, blending Christmas and Hanukkah with the added twist of third culture traditions and influences. We are going to talk about those two winter festivals and how we are trying to keep both traditions alive in our multicultural interfaith families. Even if your family is celebrating neither Hanukkah nor Christmas, you will hopefully enjoy this episode anyway, and maybe take something valuable from it that can be applied to a holiday you are celebrating this season. And there are so many. Winter solstice celebrations, Kwanzaa, New Year's, both Marissa's and my birthdays. Even Super Bowl Sunday is celebrated and revered in many families, often with the same foods and traditions as a religious holiday would be. Or if you don't find this episode valuable for your own family, we hope you can at least chuckle at our stories and our not always successful attempts at getting our families excited about the holidays.
Welcome to Culture Clash Parenting, the podcast where laughter meets learning on the wild ride of raising kids in foreign lands. Join us, two Atlantic crossing moms with over a decade of parenting wisdom now under our belts. From navigating language barriers to blending traditions, we've got you covered with heartwarming tales and practical tips. If you're a parent far from home, feeling exhausted from juggling multiple cultures, or maybe you're eyeing that international move but feeling a bit daunted, you're in the right place. We're here to sprinkle some joy, share some laughs, and remind you that you're not alone on this adventure. So settle in, grab a cup of tea or wine, no judgment, and join us as we navigate the intricacies of parenting in a world that's anything but familiar. Get ready for a dose of empathy, a dash of humor, and a whole lot of love. Let's dive into this beautiful mess of raising kids in a different culture together.
So when Marissa and I first met on the pregnancy loss board online, we realized pretty quickly how our different backgrounds and traditions influenced our lives. Remember, we had both lost our first pregnancies to a blighted ovum in September 2006 and met in the online blighted ovum support group that same month. By December that year, we were already besties, having realized how parallel our lives were unfolding. Marissa, the Jew from New York City who had married a Christian who had grown up mostly in Europe, and me, the Christian from Germany who had married a Jew from New York City. It was truly uncanny. So naturally, come December, our personal messages on the board involved questions about how we celebrate Jesus's birth and the Festival of Lights at the same time. I mean, it was a nice break from, hey, how's the acupuncture going? Hey, you pregnant yet? Did I tell you my OB found a cyst on one of my ovaries? Yeah, no wonder I didn't get pregnant again this month. I mean, because, that's basically what we were talking about all the time. But all joking aside, it was so nice to have a friend, albeit only online at that time, before we met in person, who was trying, just like me, to honor her own religious traditions as well as celebrate her partners at this time of year. We truly bonded over that. Fast forward to today, 18 years later. Sheesh.
Crazy, crazy.
Marissa, we're getting old.
I'm older than you too, a whole month.
Not even 30 days. Excuse me, I'm gonna need to take a quick break to count the newly sprouted gray hair on my head. I think there might have been 3 more now, just saying this. Oh my. Marissa has moved to Europe. She's raising her boys in the French culture, all the while trying to keep both their American and Marissa's Jewish heritage alive. And I'm still in the States, divorced and in a newer relationship, trying to blend my German traditions, my first children's Jewish American traditions, and my new partner's really American Christian traditions around the holidays. Our blended child is 3 and thoroughly confused as to why her mother insists that not Santa, but the Christkind or Père Noël brings the presents, depending on what language I'm currently speaking to her. Oh, we'll get back to that later. Marissa, do you think around this time of the year, do your sons feel more French, more American, or more Jewish? Because you moved there when your first son was still very, very little.
Yeah. We moved here when Owen was 22 months. And like at that rate, like his had only celebrated one Christmas slash Hanukkah in America. Um, and his birthday is January 1st. So I think it's really different for Owen because um, he's definitely my kid who is more into French culture. Like he's more acclimated than my kid who was born, Zachary, born here. But I think because his identity of being the American and being different has just been something he can uh, like wear as a badge of honor. I think they both see themselves as American, but I think Zach is much more like focused on like what's the culture and the traditions and what are they doing in America. And Owen's just kind of like it just is what it is. Um, Zach's also getting like approaching his bar mitzvah. He'll be bar mitzvah next year, so I think the Jewish traditions are kind of coming more like into focus for him. But it's such an interesting question because I think like it gets to the root of what we talk about on this podcast, right? Like there's such mixes, and so it depends on the day, like and who they're around. And then on top of like you were saying with like being in a new relationship and having another set of traditions, like that's how it was for us too. Like Sean has his traditions from like his family, which is different than other American Christian traditions. Um, and so they had do the like, for example, like the Christmas elf who would come for the whole month of um, December. And it was sort of around this idea of like keeping Sean's grandmother started it with her 5 kids, and it was like to keep the kids from going around the house searching for Christmas presents, right? And like Bob like being like, when's it gonna be Christmas? When's it gonna be Christmas? So it was kind of like a fun play on the Advent calendar. But um, but my kids have like Hanukkah, which usually is before Christmas. This year it's on Christmas Day is the first night of Hanukkah. So it's like
Right.
usually it's like my kids are like, oh, like it's Hanukkah and the elf came and like we celebrate Escalade kind of as a fun one, which is we talked about on the last episode, but is a uniquely Genevan holiday from Geneva. And so yeah, it's just like there's so much happening that could like um so yeah, it just feels like I think it's just they just get it's just like a whole it's like the mishmash of holidays. And I'm not even sure they know which ones are Jewish traditions and which ones are Christian traditions. And because we have
I'm
like
sure they
Hanukkah
know.
decorations on our Christmas tree, right? Like we've made the like menorah, uh we've made like a ball like one of the paint your own ornament things like with a menorah on it. So, like, we just try and blend them in different ways.
My Jewish ex-mother-in-law had a gumball tree. Like it was a little plastic tree with branches, and she put gumballs on top of those
I love that.
because because apparently one of her boys had said, "You can't send me to Hebrew school, and put up a Christmas tree. It doesn't work." So they made a gumball tree.
um, yeah, it was always funny. We always had like we called it the Hanukkah bush. That was at my uncle's house. Like my aunt was married to a Christian man, and so they had a Christmas tree at their house. But because my grandmother didn't like that, we just called it the Hanukkah bush, and it kind of as a joke, but it kind of stuck even after she passed away. Where we're like, we're going to like get our Hanukkah presents under the Hanukkah bush.
Yeah.
um, what about you guys? Like, what do your kids love? I don't even want
I
to say love more because I hope they love them equally. But like, how do they feel? How do
I think they just really like both. They like just the holidays in general, like kids do, right? Um, I we do keep a menorah at our house, even though it's their Christian household. But my daughter lights the candles when she's here on those nights. I encourage that, and even though my stepkids don't really appreciate it too much, they don't put up a fight because it's still their holiday too. And the she lights it right next to the Christmas tree. So I think the blending is working in that way. And for me, it's kind of the equivalent of the tradition of lighting the 4 candles on an Advent wreath. Every Sunday during Advent in Christianity, a light gets lit on the wreath. And you can, I don't have one. Otherwise, we could put this on YouTube and I could actually show it during it, because in America, I have to make it myself, and I'm really not that crafty. In Germany, you just buy it at Aldi or Lidl. Um, but yeah, and what you had said before, because Owen's birthday is on January 1st, so it always kind of goes with Hanukkah and Christmas. So my daughter's birthday is the beginning of November. Like our kids are 6 weeks apart, right? And her first birthday, that first holiday season, we did everything because I mean we didn't know. We hadn't quite figured out how to blend the traditions on our own before she was born. And then she turned 1 in November. Then the end of November started the lights on the Advent wreath that I actually did make myself, because one of my German friends invited us to a party of making your own Advent wreath. So I had one that year. And she then so we lit that candle the last weekend in November, whenever the first Advent was. And then on December 1st, I had made her an Advent calendar with little packages. So every day she could open one. And it's almost like the 8 nights of Hanukkah then, because you get like a pair of socks or, a box of crayons. I mean, little things. And then there was Saint Nick, who arrived on the 6th and filled her shoe with another little gift and lots of chocolate, obviously. And then there was Christmas. And because I was from Germany, where we celebrate Christmas Eve and exchange presents on Christmas Eve, but her father, being even though Jewish, but still American, and said, well, no, Santa also comes during the night. So then our compromise was that Santa fills the stocking during the night, and the Christkind brings the gifts on Christmas Eve. And so there were Christmas presents on Christmas Eve. Then Christmas Day, Santa came and filled the stocking and brought one other gift because he had insisted that year. And that's when we changed it actually to the stocking, I think, because then there was Hanukkah for a week. So January was a major disappointment for my 1-year-old.
Yeah, like presents.
I mean, she would literally wake up in the morning and go looking for presents, and there weren't any.
For us, it's that opposite, right? It's like Owen's birthday being the end of that. There's like this big party that's around him. And then I'm exhausted, and my birthday is the 8th, so 1 week later. And I'm like, I'm so done. Like, I don't need anything. I just want to be left alone. Like, what do you want for your birthday? For somebody to
a massage, a facial,
a massage, the day to myself. Leave me alone. But yeah, it's so funny because I think it's like that pendulum swings, right? Like, and I love what you're saying about like baby's first Christmas or first Hanukkah, like the first holiday. There really is this energy of like, oh, we have to make all these memories and it's going to be wonderful. And then that like so tapers off and sort of ebbs and flows. And especially like when they enter teenagehood and they want to hang out with their friends, or they spend time at a friend's house and see a different tradition and then like ask why we don't do that. Or maybe they stop believing in Santa, or like here when we moved here, right? Like we don't we sort of recently have become more connected with the Jewish community, but we didn't know a lot of Jewish people before. So it was one of those things. It was sort of like, well, why are we doing this and our friends aren't? Those kinds of questions. But I also love, because it's like you get to also see which of the traditions are the most important to you. Like for me, it's absolutely the lighting the candles. Like I will not even if we forget to do it at sundown, I will not let the kids go to bed if we haven't lit the candles for the 8 nights. we don't miss a night. Um,
Do your
with
kids sing? Do
yeah,
your kids sing the prayers? They know the prayers?
yeah.
Because
That's
I don't think my son does. My daughter does, and she will do it. But I don't know if he actually does.
so there's two things that helped my kids learn the prayers. Um, one was obviously just repetition, but the Bare Naked Ladies actually have in their Christmas album, they have the Hanukkah blessing song on it, and so they actually sing all three. The
The bare
Hanukkah
naked
blessing.
ladies. All
Yeah.
right, take note. The bare naked ladies.
The Bare Naked Ladies holiday album. I think it's from like the early 2000s. They have they have a couple of Hanukkah songs on it, and the Hanukkah Blessings is one of them. And I actually really like their version. It's not like just sort of chanting, it's more musical. So we always would play that, and then we would say, in the middle of the song, they actually do the prayers. So so we would always have that in the background. So my kids learned it through that because we would also play, we made and we still do to this day, we have a holiday playlist. Because one of the things that you and I were talking about um was in the US, one difference is like holiday music is everywhere. And it's Christmas music. Christmas music is
All the
everywhere. You
time.
go into an elevator in a building and there's Christmas music. You go shopping and there's Christmas music. You like, I don't like in the like an escalator and like it's just everywhere. Like you can't.
You're on hold with a credit card company. It's Christmas music. And it doesn't only start like December 1st or on the first Advent. It starts like the middle of November these
Yeah, it's like
days.
the day after Thanksgiving. They're like, now what are we gonna like focus on? So whereas here they don't. So first of all, with like marrying into a Christian family, that was their tradition. Like my mother-in-law was like day after Thanksgiving, the Christmas music goes on, and I was like, nope, like this isn't. I have to listen to this stuff all over, like everywhere else I go. I don't want to listen to it when I walk into like my mother-in-law's house. So I created a playlist that combined um all the Hanukkah songs that I could find, which is how I know about the Bare Naked Ladies one, because I've continued to add on to it over the years. But there's some really like chintzy, like random ones from the 60s and 70s that are just fun to listen to. There's actually one that's like Hanukkah and Christmas hand in hand. There's one about Christmas really rocks with a Jewish mom, Hanukkah jams with a Christian dad. Like that's the title of the song.
So
So
this
they
is the
created this
equivalent of
playlist. I'll have to. It's still on the iPod. That's how old this playlist is. I haven't moved it over to Spotify. Like I still have to go set up the iPod to listen to it.
that's
Um,
you're going to have to move it over before your iPod dies because
yeah. And we
but
did
is
talk
that
about how old we were. I just dated myself even more. Like it's the first generation iPod too. Um,
oh my
but
God.
yeah, like so that's one of the traditions that like um I think really when that that I love too is like we listen to a lot of music in this house, and so I do kind of it's going by the wayside because the kids now have their own taste in music and kind of roll their eyes when I put it on. But like every so we actually haven't listened to it yet this year, but it will go on after I record after we finish recording this episode because now I've thought about it and I feel guilty that I haven't played it once. Um, but yeah, it's like things like that. Like you that thing that was really different was it as much as there's Christmas everywhere here, it's so much more muted than it is and it's definitely becoming more and more like um I was at a store yesterday and there was Christmas music and I was like, what is going on? Why is there Christmas music playing? Um and but like yeah, it's I feel like overall it's not as in your face. And so it does become sort of easier, and it doesn't snow here. It becomes a little easier to forget sometimes that it's the holidays. Um, unless you're like when your kids are little and you're in school and they're constantly coming home, like telling you how many days are left until like vacances, right? Like, and
So
then like, and then after vacances, there's like 7 days until Père Noël comes. So, um, yeah.
you guys get off from school 7 days before Christmas.
Well, I mean, what this year it's 7 days,
This year.
but
Okay.
like, or I guess it's only 5 days because they get off tomorrow's their last day of school, but
Yeah. Same
the
here.
20th is their last day of school. But yeah, it's usually like the Friday before they get off. But they know how many sleeps until Christmas, right? When they're little, they're
So, noch dreimal schlafen. Sleep 3 more times is what they would say in German.
yeah.
Funny.
Um,
So
what
you
are
said, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, what are some of the ways that you guys combine the Christmas and the Hanukkah traditions?
Uh, like I said, we didn't, now we really just, we don't do any gift giving on Hanukkah in this house, but, um, but we do light the menorah if my kids are here. Technically, they're, what their father and I had agreed on was he has them for Hanukkah and I have them for Christmas. But when they kind of fall hand in hand, and Hanukkah is, 8 days long, and now that we live in the same neighborhood and the kids can walk between the houses, we do see them quite a bit. And so sometimes they're here, and also, I mean, he has holiday traditions and holiday parties from work and whatnot. So yeah, at that point we just light the candle and my daughter sings the prayers, and then that's the Hanukkah here. I don't decorate for Hanukkah anymore in this house because they're only here with 2 or 3 days out of those 8 days. And we celebrate more Christmas obviously now.
So
But like I
this
said before,
decoration is such an interesting question because I was talking to a friend who's Danish, and so I'm curious. And we were talking about how like it's not as in your face here. Like there's like the Sapin de Noël, right? Like every town kind of has the Christmas tree. And when we first moved here, there'd be a nativity scene now too. Like now they don't do the nativity scenes in public spaces. But the town hall will often have like a mailbox for posting letters to Santa. Um, but it's not as it tends to be more lights and not really like the candy cane lane, like Griswold family Christmas vomiting of like and competitions with your neighbors of who has the better decorations.
or the higher electricity bill.
Yeah, or the higher electricity bill. But one of the things that I noticed um and you sort of touched upon it earlier too is like the timeline. So one thing that when we first moved here really surprised me that like it really wasn't until like December 1st that I started seeing lights go up, and it was almost like people bought their advent calendar and then put their lights up. Whereas in the States, like it's like the day after Thanksgiving and it's huge. Um, but you would even see like my friend was telling me who's Danish that like most people in that she knew growing up didn't get their Christmas tree until the 23rd of December. And then they would spend the 24th of morning decorating it because they lit candles on the tree, like actual candles instead of lights. And so it needed to be the freshest tree so you didn't burn the house down. But so I'm curious what it's like in Germany. Like, where does it fall on that scale of like how soon before are people decorating and talking about it? And like you said, you've got December 6th too thrown in there with Saint Nick. So
Well, the Christmas tree, I agree with your Danish friend. We definitely, that was a 24th morning thing. But I just always figured, well, that might have been just in our house because my dad was working full time and he was the one that carried the Christmas tree back from the store. So we usually picked it out on the 23rd or 24th. But that makes perfect sense with the candles, and that the tree had to be the freshest one so it wouldn't burn. I never thought about this before, but yeah, that would be the logical explanation because we certainly did have real candles on our tree. I remember when I was a kid, we had real candles. Still to this day, my parents put up I don't know, one package of real candles basically around the tree. But because there are fewer real candles and real candle holders that I don't even know if you could still buy. When I was a kid, because of the real candles, you can't have those burning with little children walking around. um, there were lights, how we put around the tree, we put the light chain kind of with all the little blinking lights on. Those looked like real candles. Like they were basically like fake candles with a light on the top where you twisted one loose at night before you went to bed, and the next day, once the night falls and it's dark enough, you twist it again, and then all the lights come on that look like real candles.
Oh, cool.
So they kind of bridged it. I'm sure these days most people don't put real candles on their trees anymore. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I also will admit that I have not been to Germany for Christmas in a very long time. I know my father still puts some real candles up.
I don't know
and
how
that is,
many people have real trees anymore.
oh no, people still have a lot of real trees. The last time I was there, it was, I think, 2011, maybe 2012. And we still went, we got a real tree and it got trimmed and real candles were put on it. And I'm sure they still do. At least it looks like like that when we Zoom or WhatsApp over Christmas. But yeah, those lights don't come on until the 24th usually. I don't know if there are many people who now light a tree and keep it lit for weeks in advance. And that was one of the things that I did when I first moved here. I would put up the Christmas tree maybe a couple of days before Christmas, but I wouldn't light it because the tradition, at least in my family, was that the Christkind, which is who brings the presents in Germany, not Santa. Santa doesn't. It's Saint Nick on the 6th, who kind of looks like Santa, I suppose, but he doesn't come with reindeer, and generally he, at least with my brother and me, maybe we just didn't behave. He brought like a big thing of twigs that were bound together as a warning sign, but
That's cool.
the Christkind brought the presents, and that's the baby Jesus. And the Christkind flies in through a window on Christmas Eve, and then when he's done putting the presents under the tree, turns on the lights on the tree and rings a little bell, and then the kids all come running in. But the Christkind's of course gone because nobody's ever seen the Christkind. Kind of like nobody's ever seen Santa either. So.
Oh, I love that. That's such so did your I feel like that makes it like when I'm thinking about like the elf and like the mischief, like one of the things that we really like to do, and you and I, it's one of the things that we talk about a lot, right? Like bringing the fun and the joy, like, and the um getting to be a child again, like just having those moments. And to me, like that's one of the fun things of being a parent is like, oh, I get to do these things that when I was a kid, just I thought was so magical, right? Like the elf here, it's like the elf writes a letter, and the sometimes the elf is really mischievous and he'll like toilet paper the tree, or he'll like turn the furniture around, or like make like he's like, oh, I tried to make you a cake, but I couldn't, and then there's like flour all over the kitchen. And it's always like annoying to to clean it up as the person who has to clean it up. But when you're doing it, I'm like, oh, this is so fun, and the kids are gonna love it. And then seeing the joy and the excitement on their face when they come down in the morning and they're like, the elf came, and the
So
very
so you said before Sean's grandmother started the elf thing?
like she started the like this version of the elf in their family. Like I know there's the whole elf on the shelf and the elf on the shelf
Exactly.
that does like stuff like that. But this was like before like
Before it got commercialized.
yeah, I think it probably came from somebody like her. It was like, how do you keep the kids entertained for 24 days? Um, yeah, but those are the things that are kind of like that are the fun pieces. And where was I going with this? I had a reason that I brought this up again. Oh, just getting to be the kid again, right? Like I think part of the magic of the holidays, especially when as we get older, and sometimes it can feel like we've got so much going on and we're exhausted and heading in, like I know I'm always like, oh, what am I gonna do for 2 weeks with my kids home. Especially when before they were teenagers, when I kind of still had to be more like organize their schedules more. Um, there was still always those moments of like getting ready to go to bed and being like, oh, like the elf hasn't come in a couple of days. Like, what should the elf do? Like, and sort of and starting to brainstorm the mischief or the um or oh, I was washing some so and so's socks and they have holes in it, so I'm gonna go buy him new socks and the elf is gonna bring him socks or something. Right? Like, but like how is he gonna give him the socks so that like he's excited to get socks and when he wakes up in the morning. um where it does it like it brings that energy of joy and happiness, and I think that's really in kind of what these celebrations around winter solstice were, because it's just cold and dark and it's easy to
Scary.
go, yeah, like just be like, um, yeah, right. And so it's like, oh, like we're gonna light candles on a tree and we're gonna like have a little elf, whether whoever whatever we get whatever name we give him, we're gonna have this little like magical figure that comes and delivers presents. And to me, that's so different than Hanukkah, which, you know, is not like we make it a festive holiday, and a lot of people call it the Jewish Christmas, but like it's about miracles. Um, it's about uh like um winning a war. Like it's actually not right. Like it's really about like resilience and survival and the miracles that led to that happening and then that happened afterwards. But there's still this joy and this magic around it because of this belief in miracles and the magic. And I think that's what brings these holidays together for us. Like that's the energy that we want. If the tradition doesn't feel like it's going to bring that, then like we don't want to keep it um
In our repertoire.
our repertoire. Yeah. It's probably why like we were talking last time about like the foods we cook, right? Like I don't really want to make a ham or a goose, so we'll do fondue. Like just
There
melt
you
some
go.
cheese in the pot. It's good.
But what you said in the and you started this section off with, I I think it's all about getting to be a kid again. And I think that's also where our traditions from being children come into play, even if we're in a different country or a different culture, um, or on vacation for Christmas or Hanukkah. You still you take a little travel menorah, or you would still somehow find a way to really you take the presents and find a way to give those and still kind of take your traditions with you. And that's because you remember, hopefully you have fond memories of when you were a child and you want to have your children experience the same joy, and whether that's through an elf that you knew as a child, or the Christkind or Santa or whatever it is, right?
Judah Maccabee with his like
The Maccabees.
his sword, like charging.
I watched Friends one too many, 500 too many times probably. And whenever somebody says, it's the festival of Hanukkah and the Maccabees, I picture a holiday armadillo.
Totally.
Uh,
Um, Well, and I think that's so true, right? I think like there's also that tradition of gift giving is part of that magic too, right? Like remember like when the kids were little and they cared more about the box than the actual toy. Like there's like, ooh, paper, like wrapping paper in a box. And you're like, why did I spend this money on this toy? There's
because
just
you were getting bored with the toys that were around the house, so you needed them to have a new toy. At
yeah,
least that was my excuse.
taking the batteries out so they didn't make noise. Um, Yeah, like there's just that also that like human connection of like how it feels to receive a gift and the warmth um and the like, even if I know I think this is when I knew that I was sort of like burnt out by the time I got to my birthday, was that like I just didn't care about opening presents anymore, right? I was just like, ugh. Unless it was like, but if it was an envelope and I knew inside was like a massage coupon, I'd be like, ooh, what's in here?
What can
Um,
this for tomorrow?
totally. But there's just, I'm joking, but there is that, like, there's just that like excitement about like ripping open the paper and getting the gift inside and knowing that somebody took time to, to connect, even if it's not what you wanted or commanded in French. It's not what you ordered from Air Noel. Um, it's not what you expected or wanted. Like there's this like genuine like pleasure that comes in receiving gifts, and then there's also the joy and pleasure that comes in giving gifts to others. Um, that sense of belonging, right? And I think in this time where it does feel like there's so much uncertainty and it does feel like there's so much division and there is this sort of energy of discomfort that um that is just, I think, riling a lot of us up, to be able to come back to those traditions and to be able to come back to that sense of belonging and to be able to even, like, I think what bonded you and I that first December after our losses, in having something else to talk about. But like you said it in the introduction, like we found how much we had in common, even though seemingly on paper we had completely different lives growing up. Like we found this commonality that then has led to 18 years of friendship, right? Like um and so there's it, like I feel like it's just this time of year to remember that we're all connected and these are all different ways of celebrating that magic and that belief and gratitude and miracles, and hoping that the tree is not going to get, burnt down by the candles, or the kids are not going to get burnt by the candles. I remember that being a huge thing in my house, was like, because you're supposed to put the menorah by the window, but then that meant that the window had to be shut so that the wind wouldn't blow out the candles. So it was this like maneuvering thing, right? Of like, where's the best place to put the menorah so everybody can see it from the outside, but also like um you had to have the window shut.
And then at night, if you were falling asleep, you have to make sure you put it in the sink before.
Yeah. Or like surrounded by, you got like couldn't fall asleep until they were all uh I remember we used to leave Shabbat candles like, because they burn for 24 hours. We'd leave them all night. And we had somebody staying with us once, and she blew them out when she had come home after we went to bed, and she blew them out just not knowing. And we woke up in the morning and the Shabbat candle was like half down, and we're like,
Oh, goodness.
um, but even those memories, like getting to tell those stories, like I think that's the part of it, right? It connects you to like,
To your family of origin, but also to your new friends and
yeah,
your life now. Like it kind of connects the past and the present.
yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
that's why we want to pass those memories then on to our children. So it kind of lives on in the future too. I think
Yeah,
that's very, that should be how most traditions, good traditions should work, right? And that's why we still do stuff that our grandparents already did, like the Hanukkah bush or the gumball tree or whatever.
okay, so I feel like we just
Um,
went down like this beautiful, like spiritual path. To bring back some humor into it, I would I would love to hear what's one thing. And you and I talked about once we talked about white elephant parties or grab your neighbor parties. Like one thing that happens during the season that you're like, if I had a magic wand and could magically erase this from like society's, like, or not society's, but like my family's like way of celebrating this season. Other than the rob your neighbor Christmas party, or gift giving exchange. What are things that you would get rid of? Not just one, just what are some of the things you would get rid of for this holiday?
Um, well, what I would, being the European who likes the lights a little more subdued, I'd get rid of blow up figurines in the yards. Like um and we have a little one that was recently going in the basement. That, an older sibling blew up for the little one, and she loved it. But then everybody went upstairs, and there was just some blow up figure in the basement, eating up my electricity. So, um, but that's not. They're kind of fun too. I just some of them when they fall over and then they just lay on your front yard, it just looks very sad. It's no longer festive and Christmassy to me. But again, maybe I'm just too European for those. I don't. I know we talked about Rob, your neighbor, and it was funny because you had mentioned, Tobin, how um, you're all connected, well, we are all connected. You're connecting to friends, and you like the gift giving and receiving. And I was going to say, that's why I love the Secret Santa, which is when everybody draws a name, right? And that's your person. And you said you say, oh, this person really thought about what to get me. And so I love that game. My daughter is currently doing it with her group of friends. There are 5 or 6 girls. They play, what's that game? Dungeons and Dragons and Dungeons, D&D. Yeah. They play that game together, and that's how they connected a couple of years ago, and they always meet up. And so they said, well, instead of giving everybody a gift, which obviously they're 17, so they don't have that kind of money, they said, okay, we'll do Secret Santa. And last night she said, can I run into Target because I want to get something for my Secret Santa? And she came out and she said, she really likes nail polish, and she has all these different, or these are the 2 colors. She bought her 2 things of nail polish, because that was the limit that they had set, the $20 limit or whatever. And she got these funky colors, and she said, this is kind of the colors that she wears. So I got these to go with her wardrobe. And because that's what I noticed. Like she spent a good 30 minutes, because I was at Trader Joe's during the time. She spent a good 30 minutes getting 2 things of nail polish. But it's sweet, and it's funny how here it's Secret Santa. In German, it's called Wichteln, and a Wichtel is kind of like an elf. So it's almost like elfing. So it's not, again, it's not Santa. Santa is not that huge. Like, he's becoming bigger, possibly because all the Americans leave out cookies and milk for him every Christmas. He's becoming bigger in Europe too, but he's still not that important. So Wichteln or Secret Santa, is there a French term for it?
I asked Owen and he didn't know it. So I don't know. We'll have to look it up and I'll have to ask real French people, not children.
But that's a fun one to me because it embodies everything that you had mentioned before. This person really thought about it. I think some people call it white elephant, but in this family they call it rob your neighbor. And it is probably the most horrific Christmas tradition I can think of, because you're required to bring a gift for this amount of money, and every woman brings a woman's gift and every man brings a man's gift. Again, it has to be like for a certain amount of money that you may or may not have, but so you just go and get something, because they're all different ages. So most of the time it's, who couldn't use a water bottle or a coffee mug? So we have a lot of those. And And that's kind of the white elephant too. Like you get a gift that's, I think for white elephant, it's even like it has to be something that nobody can ever use. I
Yeah, and
mean,
it's usually something you got that you don't, well, at least the way we used to do it was like something that you got that you were regifting because you were
yes,
never
that's
going to
right.
use it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think rob your neighbor is about regifting. Like we actually do spend time picking that out and wrapping it. And then all the women's gifts get put on one pile and all the men's gifts get put on one pile. And then you draw a number. Basically, they count how many people are at the party or count how many gifts there are. You draw a number. And then when it starts at one. So you want to get a high number because when it starts at one, you're the first person to go and pick a gift. And you have to then open it so everybody sees it. And if somebody wants that gift, when their number is 13, they can come and steal it from you.
Yeah.
Or they go and take another gift. But if you're a low number, you end up with something you don't need, or that somebody else could use, but there was something better. But that's not even the main thing because it's not necessarily as an adult. You if you need something, you can probably buy it yourself, hopefully. And if you're going to a party like that, right?
Yeah.
But once the kids then get into it, when they're 16, so they get into the adult version, and then they get a lower number, and there's some great tool set that every 15, 16-year-old boy is super excited about. It gets this tool set, and then some adult who probably makes a whole lot more money and can buy their own tool set, takes it from that boy, and you just see his face fall, and that's just so sad.
Yeah.
That's why I
I feel like
can't
it
stand
defeats
it.
the purpose of this, like what we were talking about in the season. That's why I'm like, get rid of it. Cross
Yeah,
it off.
yeah. If there's one thing I could change, it would be rob your neighbor games everywhere. I just don't think they celebrate the whole. I made time to think about what you might want, and
Yeah. Yeah,
what
I
would be
think
one
for
thing you
me,
would get rid of?
I mean, we already talked about Christmas music in elevators. Like, yes,
Yep,
like let's get rid of that. Um,
and the jingly kind too, that then stick with you all
yeah,
day long.
yeah, totally.
You get an earworm. That's what they say in German. An Ohrwurm
Yeah,
haben.
an earworm.
Have an earworm. Oh, it's so bad.
I think for me that would probably be it. And I think just I think just the I and this is like the like Jewish little girl, right? Like Kyle used to sing on South Park, like it's lonely being a Jew on Christmas. Like I think just here in France, like it's just so people just don't get that how dominant Christianity is in the culture. And so they're like, there's a whole rule here around not being able to be religious in public spaces and in school. And then they have like a marché de Noël and they have like, and when you're like, isn't that religious? They're like, no, it's pagan. I'm like, well, first of all, it wasn't pagan like a form of religion. And also, like,
You're putting
you're not
Noel
calling
in
it
the
the
word.
pagan tree, you're calling it like the Christmas tree. Like, so for me, like, it would just be, just that, like, either own it or like put up Christmas. Like in our town, they like I said, they have the Christmas tree, they have the letter to Santa, the mailbox for Santa Claus, and then the decorations in town um are really just twinkly lights. They're not um they don't have Christmas trees or anything that you could associate. It's really just kind of just a thing that hangs from the lampposts and when you drive down the main street.
But it's not the red and white pole covering for looking like a candy cane or all red and green Christmas lights
Yeah,
blinking at you.
exactly. Yeah, and for me, I mean, that's I think one thing that I really has just kind of triggered the wrong word, but I'm always just like, really, people, like, you do not see this? Do you not recognize like the privilege that you have in this time and space? because all the schools have Christmas trees like in the school, and I'm like, you're still like that? Um,
Public schools?
yeah, like my kids' schools have always had a Christmas tree. But when I've asked them about that, they're like, no, it's a sapin. And I'm like, a sapin de Noël? Like you don't have that. So I think it's just that. But I also think, um, and I'll call us out on this, like we did several years ago when there was this big push not to buy real trees because of the ecological
Impact.
um, impact. We did buy a synthetic tree, and it's just not the same. Like there's just something like it misses it, it's missing the smell. It's missing like just even like the drama of like it drying and then needles falling and then you have to vacuum, right? Like there's just
You're
something
missing the vacuuming.
like there's just something, I don't know, that again, like as a Jewish girl who didn't get to have that growing up but saw it on TV, I'm like I like that I can have that. But now we don't have it anymore. So I would go back to having a real tree um
Okay.
for us. But
I
yeah,
love the real tree. I love the smell of it. I was definitely against the artificial tree, but
I mean it's
but
nice.
again, that's just what I grew up with. Not because I would have minded too much. And I do think most of the artificial trees, at least in this country, they are very dense.
Yeah.
I never I never understand the super dense trees. Like I would rather have a Charlie Brown tree than the super dense one where I can sit on the couch and just kind of throw the ornaments at it and they just stick. I,
Yeah, it's like Velcro tree. Um, so yeah, I think that's but definitely I'm like you. I mean, we used to do, I think my favorite version of like a white elephant gift, what we did like a Secret Santa version of it where you had to bring something that but it was you picked a name, so it was for a specific person. So you kind of like went through the gifts that you got in over the years that were in fairly good condition that you thought, or you went to like a used CD store. Because again, dating myself, we had CDs at the time. And
we still have a record store in our town that I didn't even know about. I just found out about when I took my kid trick or treating on the business side. Yeah, we have a
now it's all the
record store.
rage again. Like at the music shop here, they all sell record players. Like it's like coming back. Um, but
See,
yeah,
we're not
it's
that old.
yeah. So I liked that, and Owen does do similar to what you were talking about with Franzia. Like um Owen does a Secret Santa with his group of friends, and I really like that because yeah, like it means that they can buy a bigger present that's still affordable with the budget that they have, um and they take the time to really think about what the person wants. Um,
Yeah, because that's what Christmas is really all about, or Hanukkah is. It's the gift giving part of it is about getting something for somebody specific that they know that person will like, or that they think that person will like, and they put time and effort into it.
yeah.
Less so than money. Like to me, it's more important that the person thought about what they what the other person would want than spending a whole lot of money on it.
Yeah. I feel like Hanukkah is really supposed to be about the fried food more than the presents, but we always like, give me the present. Yeah. But yeah, no, I for sure. I think I think just at the one of the reasons that you and I started this podcast and that you and I, you know, it was always part of our conversations about like how do we build the bridge between like us and our children, between us and our like the country we grew up in, like um how do we keep those traditions and that connection alive? Like the connection is such a core value for us, and I feel like anything that you can do in this holiday season that helps you to feel that sense of connection, even if like you don't have great memories about the holidays as a child, like you get to make that choice now if you want to start creating those traditions and start to create that sense of connection and to put that energy out into the world. Um, and I mean, this is just a random thing, but like there was a Nunu, a nanny today that I walked past, and she was wearing little like reindeer headband, right, for the little kids. And one of the little kids was wearing a little Santa hat. So they must have had like a holiday party at their in their kush in their daycare center. And then I was teaching yoga at a school and it was pajama day, which I think was their version of ugly sweater day. Like, um, and so it was just, yeah, it's like those are just again, it's like it brings that everyday magic, right? Like the kids loved it. They thought it was so cool and like this and it made me smile to see this Nunu like pushing a stroller where like, you know, she's just kind of in her own world because the kids are all sitting in the stroller looking forward, but she's like got her little reindeer horns on and she's just like, you know, like she didn't look happy or anything. She just looked like she was having like a normal walk, a normal stroll. And but I was like, oh yay, like I forgot like it's Christmas season, right? It's holiday season. Like it's just that little reminder that kind of put a smile on my face. So you just never know like the joy that you bring to somebody else. And I think in this time of year, especially here in the Northern Hemisphere where it's dark and um gloomy, to be able to like just even smile at somebody walking down the street. You have no idea what kind of crappy day they've been having because it's dark and gloomy and cold and so yeah, so those are our how we've blended the traditions. And we'd love to hear from you all who are listening, which of our stories resonated, which like, and then like, what ways do you blend cultures and traditions? And even if you only celebrate one holiday, like, are there other traditions that you've incorporated from talking to a friend or family that you've brought in into your own home and your own family space? Because yeah, sharing is what this season is about. So we'd love for you to share your stories with us.
Yeah, are we out of time or do
I
we have
think, I think we're pretty close to being out of time. I know we have
okay.
so much more. Like we were going to talk about Christmas music. We were going to talk about opening the gifts at different
The
times. We sort
ugly
of touched
sweater
on
day
all
was
those things. We've touched on all the things we wanted to talk about. We didn't spend as much time on them, but I feel like we spent a lot of time on the things that make us laugh.
well, and also the essential part of this kind of celebrating and gift giving season.
Yeah. Yeah.
The loving each other and caring about each other, I think is probably the big thing. That's why we send Christmas cards too. I mean, I personally don't. I've sent Christmas cards once in my life, but I buy them every year and I never write them. But thank you to all my family and friends that are listening to this for all your cards. I keep them. I truly do. I have Christmas cards from all of you from the past like 20 years. And I actually look at them every year for Christmas because they are in the same box with my ornaments. But or my nutcrackers and little smoking men and
I know.
all the
Not to put a picture of the smoking man on Instagram
yeah.
because
I told telling Marissa about the German smoking men, and she says, "What is it? What is that? What?" And so I had to show it to her. But basically, it's a little wooden figurine, and you open it up and put an incense into it and light that. Close the figurine again, and then there's the smoke coming out of their pipe or mouth, out of their mouth into their pipe, basically, and they smell good. So we have them.
great role model for children.
Oh no, I put them up high.
Oh no, I meant the smoke, like the smoke coming out of their mouth. I feel like that's such a, to me, that's such a year, seeing how many children smoke here, like teenagers smoke here. I'm like, oh, that's why, because they had that
Oh,
one.
that's because they were told it's okay.
Because the smoking man at Christmas time could do it.
Oh, yeah, but I think decades ago they learned that you no longer crack the nuts open with your mouth, like the nutcrackers that we have everywhere in Germany too.
Are you saying teenagers are still capable of learning new things?
Okay, we're not giving anybody any ideas here.
No. But yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think so one of the things that I would love to hear from you, and Astrid and I will be sharing this on social media, but like what are the favorite gifts that you've gotten? So in this spirit of giving and receiving, what are some of the favorite gifts that you've received? And what are some of the favorite gifts that you've given to people? Um, so uh and then I would also love to hear your favorite holiday songs because my playlist needs a little bit of an update. So what songs can I add to my playlist?
And if anyone wants a specific song on Marissa's playlist, then you need to email us because Marissa will be happy to then share it.
Absolutely. This might be a call of action to actually make a Spotify version of um, of my iPod playlist. Yes, absolutely. Email us and I will send you my favorite random Hanukkah songs from who knows when and who knows who, because I don't know the names of any of the people who sing them.
I'm going to Google the Bare Naked Ladies one now.
The Hanukkah Blessing song by the Bare Naked Ladies is a great one. Jack Black has some really good, he's Oh Hanukkah, Oh Hanukkah. He has a really good version of that. He had a Hanukkah album that came out a couple of years ago.
I may have to email Marissa myself here and get her playlist. So if you wanted, do the same. And yes, definitely tell us about your favorite gifts that you've given or received. That would be really interesting. And what I would still want to know is, what are your big holiday traditions and the ones you'd like to do away with?
Yeah.
How do you like White Elephant?
Yeah. On a scale of
Does it
1 to
hurt
10.
your heart too? Does it hurt your heart too when somebody gets taken something away from them? I don't like that feeling.
Yeah. Well, happy holidays. Since this year, Christmas and Hanukkah are literally like intersected on the same day. As you're listening to this, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, summer
Happy winter solstice.
winter solstice.
Happy Christmas car. It's not a what was the one year when we first met? It was a Thanksgiving.
It was Oh yeah, Thanksgiving and Hanukkah were at the same time. Thanks, Hanukkah.
Yes, it was something we combined all three words, but I can't think of it. But this year it's just Christmas car. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and we'll see you in 2025.
And as always, please like us and subscribe. That would mean a lot to us. And in German, we would not only say Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, we would also say und einen guten Rutsch ins neue Jahr. Basically, you're wishing somebody to slide well into the new year, possibly because there used to be snow around New Year's a long, long time ago.
And in French, we would say Joyeuses Fêtes, so Happy Holidays, and menorahs, which is like million voices or million wishes for a new year. So, or yeah, best
all of that.
Yeah, best wishes.
All of that to all of you.
All of that to all of you.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.